Hello, everyone. I'd like to welcome John Chan. He's one of the owners and the VP of PR for the Durable Group, which consists of the Durable Slate Company and Durable Restoration. Now, I've known John, gosh, how long have I known? I think I met you first in 1995.
Yeah, a
At
long
a
time.
conference or something together, right? And just watch this meteoric rise of your company. It's always been like, what's always struck me about what you guys do is it's so high tech and it's so artisan work, right? It's not just would think anyone can do. It takes a special type of person to do what you guys do. Now with that, John, why don't you share what it is that is Durable Slate, Durable Restoration, and how you founded the company? Well, how the company was founded, rather. Mhm.
Okay, so yeah, I actually started in the company back in when it first started, 1986. It was a summer job for me. I was going to UCLA. I'd come back for the summers in Columbus, Ohio, and I was just a laborer. I'd cut slate, haul slate, just different things like that. And after I finished, I started working full time in 1989 after I graduated. At first, we just did slate repair. We would repair slate roofs all over the city. Then we started to do some new slate roofing, and then we started to do copper work and clay tile roofing, and we expanded into all different kinds of historic roofing. And through the years, people asked us, "Oh, well, could you do this? Could you do this?" And that was the birth of the Durable Restoration Company. We started doing like copper kitchens and historic masonry repair and structural stabilization and things like that. So that's kind of how it all started. And then in 96, I moved down to Cincinnati to open up our first branch office. Then shortly after, we opened up Cleveland. Then I moved down to New Orleans, opened up that office, opened up another office in the DC area, and it was going so well. We actually pulled all the guys from New Orleans, and that office is actually about the same size as Columbus now. So we've done work, gosh, all over the country in well over 30 states, and even done work abroad. We did the Red House, which is the House of Parliament in Trinidad. And Lima, Peru. We've got a project going on right now in Bosnia. So we've expanded a lot. And very recently, we acquired another company over in Edinburgh, Scotland, Bain and Irvine, which does, the similar slate work to what we do.
Fascinating. Now, when you look at people working on slate roofs, it's got to be a different degree of skill set. I mean, do you find these types of roofers? Do you have to grow your own, so to speak, to get that skill set?
Yeah, you can find some, but in general, we do most of our own training. So we have our own course room. We've written courses on, how to identify slate, how to repair a slate, how to just do different things. And then we have these mock-ups in the back. So they're roofs with like chimneys on them, valleys on them, just different things. And that way you can actually practice and do the technical side of it and learn it without being 50 feet up in the air.
Very good. And possibly messing up a project or whatever it would have to be or might be, right? To
Yeah.
have them trained well before they get in the field. So I like
Right.
it. I remember reading some of the stuff that you guys have done when it came to the level of training that you put in with your guys. And it's definitely above anything I've ever seen. So off to that. Do you think that's a part of your stellar growth?
Well, sure, because training is the vital necessity to any company. So, a company that just kind of tries to go along without training all their people, you're going to have people doing things differently. When one guy thinks, "Oh, well, I know better, I'll do it this way," or, and then you get odd scenarios where things might not work the same, but if everybody's trained, then they can do the things the durable way, and you get the correct 100% product every single time.
So tell me about the durable way. I saw something on the website. Tell me what that means.
Well, basically, it means that you make sure that every single job is done perfectly to the durable way, meaning, number one, it doesn't leak. Number two, that it looks very aesthetic. People can do things to stop leaks, but if it looks horrendous, we've got a problem, right?
Right.
And it's done in a timely fashion. You don't want to start a project and then take a long break and then resume it way later. You just want to get in, get out. And it's got to be done at a good rate for the company. So basically, it's got to be done quickly, efficiently, and it's got to be done profitably. If you can do all that and do it properly, then you can continually grow. And it's also got to have longevity. I look at some of these jobs where people do things and it'll kind of work, but it's not going to last. So everything that we do has to be done with a long lifespan. So that's the durable way.
And you have done some pretty immense projects and some, like, I don't even know how you even get onto those roofs. The pitch that, I've seen in some of the videos and some of the pictures of cathedrals that you've done.
Yeah.
I mean, how do you even manage to do that?
We have worked on some really stellar projects through the years, numerous presidential homes or birthplaces like Lincoln's birthplace, Harrison's home, Garfield's home, a lot of presidential places, lots of embassies, the Norwegian embassy, Argentinian embassy, French embassy, as well as, some of these really steep pitched roofs that you see. And you just have to go in there and look at it to see what's the best way to access it. So, if we're doing something small and something big like that, you can use a man lift or a crane. My initial inspection in Montana, where we had those 275-foot twin steeples, we were up in a crane, whereas the largest crane you could get in Montana, it went 400 feet. And it was pretty interesting because, the steeples are 275. And when they first took us up, I was looking down at the steeples, like, I don't know, I was probably 50 or 80 feet above the steeples. I was like, wow, this is really up there.
Oh, man.
So when we did the inspection, we realized that we can only do emergency repairs from the crane and that we actually had to erect scaffold. And so at that point, we had to go up inside the steeple to determine that it could hold. And we realized that we can't put scaffold on top of the church roof because it wouldn't hold all that weight. So what we did was we built from the ground on three sides up. And then we brought I-beams in, and we put in, oh gosh, I want to say, was it 12 I-beams? And these structural steel I-beams went through the steeple, and then we built scaffold off of that all the way up. So even though it looked like the scaffolding was coming from the ground up, it only supported everything to that point. And then from that point on, the structural steel I-beams had the rest and basically put all the weight directly on the steeple.
How long ago was that project?
We just finished the third phase last summer. And then this summer, we're going to go back and do some of the final masonry repairs on it.
Oh, that's not your normal roofing project, I would imagine.
No, it's very unique for several reasons. Number one is, when we determined that that's what was needed, we had to get a scaffold company that was willing to do that, and B, get an engineer to basically do the drawings and stamp the project. Because on a project like that, you have to have an engineer say that's okay to do. And at first, we're having trouble with that because we're telling them how to do it. And they're like, we're not exactly sure how to make the calculations. Well, so we had to go through some different engineering firms and some different scaffolding companies. We get one that would say, yes, we understand the building. We understand what you're talking about. And we can make drawings to fit that. And then a scaffolding company that would say, okay, we understand what you're doing, and we're going to build it how you want it built. Because, we looked at it, we're like, we know this can be done, but we've got to get somebody that has that engineering capability to bless it, so to speak.
Right. You can see that.
Yeah.
See that. Now, as far as your role in the company as a VP of PR, these are fantastic projects that you've been involved in. Is there some kind of magic that you do to bring them to the forefront of your company?
I don't know if there's a magic, so to speak, but, if you think of what PR is, it's getting your well-done works or your great works known. And so that's one of the things that I do, whether I'm speaking at a conference or doing social media posts or meeting people. I just try and get our our good works well known. And like the steeple behind me, that's a church steeple that is also about 275 feet tall. It's in Dubuque, Iowa. And but it's won the NRCA Gold Circle Award for Project of the Year here in the U.S. Won the International Project of the Year award for the IFB. We received that award in Edinburgh back in 2019. When you do interesting projects like this and you let people know about it, when people see it, they're like, oh, well, these guys can do this. And that's kind of probably the difference between us and regular roofing companies. We kind of think of it as a fire and a fireman. When most people see a fire, they run. And when firemen see a fire, they run into the house to put out the fire. And so many of these projects, I've been told, like I'll ask, where did you get our name? And they're like, oh, oddly enough, from your competition, when we called them, they're like, oh, this is like a durable project. Yeah. Talking to this guy one time, I asked him how he got our name, and he said, yeah, oddly enough, from your competition. He goes, two different people. I said, yeah, how's that? He goes, well, I called a company and I told him what I wanted done. I wanted to restore the existing roof. And then in addition, I needed him to price and I was going to give him the blueprints. Well, he kind of ghosted me. And I finally got a hold of him like months later. And I asked him, and he's like, are you going to do this job or not? And he goes, no, not, I don't think so. It's kind of like a durable job. And he says, what's a durable job? He goes, well, there's a company out of Ohio that does these kinds of complex jobs. He's like, it's not that I can't do it, but he goes, there's so much technical difficulty. He's like, I'm the only one in the company that could do that kind of work. And I'd be on it for 3 years. He goes, so there's no way I could possibly do that job. He said, okay. So he called another guy and he said, that guy said almost the exact same thing. He's like, he ghosted me, finally got a hold of him months later. And he said, yeah, this is kind of a durable job. So I looked you guys up on there and I was like, who is durable? And so, yeah, it kind of comes that way sometimes because you're using your PR to let people know what it is that you do.
That's very, very, very good. And, you know, I think PR is one of those people are so focused on getting business, but, PR really plants a seed and it gets the word out. Yeah. You don't even know about cost or anything, but that quality is good. And if you need high quality and you deliver high quality, leverage on your PR. So well done there. So now your move into Scotland, tell us how that all really came into being.
Well, that was really interesting. We were at an IFD conference. IFD is International Federation of Roofing Contractors. And why it says D is that in Germany, a roofing person is a Dachendeckermeister. That's a master.
3 times. Yeah.
Yeah. So at the IFD conference, this was over in Bolzano, Italy. Gosh, I want to say about 3-ish years ago. Gary Howes and I were over there, and we overheard Graham Miller, the president of the IFD, talking about how he really wanted to retire, that he's quote unquote had his company sold twice to his employees, and it's fallen through each time because the key person has left, and there were difficulties. And he said he could sell it really easily to one of the large roofing companies because they would want to acquire it for the name. But he said he kind of knew where that would lead. And, Graham, he's a 5th generation roofer. They have a very storied past in Scotland. They've worked on, his great grandfather installed a lot of the super amazing roofs all over Scotland. You're talking about, things like Fettes College and things like that. Fettes is where a lot of your most well-known Scottish people came from, people like the old PM Tony Blair, and even fictionally, supposedly James Bond went to Fettes College, so has a very, very storied past, and that his grandfather, great grandfather, installed the roof there. This is a project that it's huge. I mean, there's turrets everywhere. It's like something you'd see out of Harry Potter. And
Right.
yeah, so it had such a storied past. And anyways, Gary and I overheard this conversation where Graham was kind of lamenting on, what do I do? And we were just thinking, I wonder if we should buy something like that. And so we approached Graham, and it took a long time because you have to understand that everything is different over there. The laws are different. We have OSHA here. They have safety and hygiene. They have different rules and regulations. The accounting is different. When we had Graham send us his books, we sent it to our accountant, and they're like, "Yeah, we need an accountant over there." So we had to interview both accountants and attorneys over there to try and figure who we could mesh with and be our liaison. So the way it worked is we had to hire an attorney and a accountant over there, an accountant, and liaise with our guys, and things would just be bouncing back and forth, bouncing back and forth. What about this? What does this mean? All of that. And then, the offer went in, and then, they took our offer and had to go through all their channels. So it took, gosh, I want to say about 2 years or so
Oh,
to,
wow.
yeah, to make everything mesh and work out right. But yeah, so we acquired the business back in November. Graham and Norma, they stayed on until just very recently. We had their retirement party. I flew over to Edinburgh, and it was really fantastic. Like I said, they have such a storied past, and people came from all over. I mean, flew in from Germany and Denmark, and all kinds of places.
Yeah. I was in Edinburgh, I think last year. Beautiful country.
Yes.
And those roofs are old.
Yeah. Exactly.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, some of the roofs that, the companies worked on, they're, 300 years old, they're just 400 years old. And there's not even buildings over here that are that old.
But then are the materials different? Is the roofing work done differently than it's done in the States or in other places you've been?
So, the slate is generally the same. I mean, they use Scottish slate over there on the most part, at least for the old historic, what they call heritage projects. The newer projects, the Scottish slate really isn't quarried anymore. Actually, I guess there's one small quarry that still kind of operates, but in general, Scottish slate isn't quarried anymore. So the new slate is generally Welsh, sometimes Spanish, but the techniques are generally the same. There's a couple of variations, but it's not huge difference. The big difference is they use lead, kind of like we use copper here. They use lead for everything. And we don't really use lead here in the U.S. It's like, I'm trying to think the last time we put on lead. Oh, I guess at the Maryland State House, we use some lead roofing. But that was a few years ago. Whereas in Scotland, they use lead every single day. It's very commonplace, and it's very unique for us here. Lead is it's frowned upon in the
Really?
U.S. Yeah.
So are there additional safety precautions since you're working with lead?
Well, yeah, they over there they basically just use gloves and soap, and yeah, they aren't so, I don't know if concerned is the right way, but OSHA kind of goes way up, way above what their safety and hygiene does for lead.
So at least it's not more regulation. It seems like a little less.
A lot less, yeah.
A lot less. So John, with the company, the companies, and your role in the company, tell us kind of, is there a story? It's just been just one success after another, but was it always that way?
I guess in the very beginning, it was pretty rough. it's kind of how my brother and I acquired the company from the person that actually started the company. The person that started the company, it was actually kind of an interesting meeting where usually what we used to do is every Sunday we would go over the statistics of the previous week and then plan out next week, what jobs we're doing and et cetera. And there was one Sunday meeting where the original founder jumped up and he said, "This is like ridiculous." We're like, "What?" He goes, "I just went out." We're like, what do you mean?" And he goes, "You guys are selling too much work." He goes, "We've got all these employees now." He goes, "I don't even know who some of them are." And it's funny because I think at that time there was only like 9 people in the company. And Brad, you don't know who some of them are. We're like, what do you mean? He's like, "I just want to work on a roof. I don't want all these big projects." And we're just like, okay. So off that time, it was kind of wild. We owed all these back taxes. We're about to be put out of business by the IRS and whatnot. And we slowly implemented hybrid management technology and used that administrative technology to basically uh, handle the training, handle the finances, and it really helped shape the company much better. And we grew exponentially. And, like I said, we just started in on copper roofing, tire roofing. We
Right.
opened different offices, and there's always bumps as you go along the way. And here's the thing that I tell people, because this is where a lot of people drive off the cliff.
Yeah.
Nothing is ever how it is in a textbook, right? You're always going to be throwing curveballs. And every time you get thrown a curveball, you almost have to kind of like do a freeze frame, a stop. Okay. You look at it and you say, okay, well, this horrible thing just happened, or this is happening and it's not supposed to go like this. You just
Right.
stop right there and go, okay, well, from this point, what is the best scenario that can happen? And then kind of like what I do in my mind is I kind of have like this little drop down menu. I go, okay, so this is the situation. These would be the outcomes that would be best. Okay, let's select one that's the best. Okay, then how do you get there? What do I have to do to make that work? COVID was a really, really good kind of like model of that, of what can happen. So COVID happens, and it was a nightmare for us because certain employees didn't want to come to work. Certain places had different guidelines that affected us majorly. We were in the middle of a church project in the state of Pennsylvania. The city came out and closed down our job in the middle of it. They told us we had to get off the roof and leave. And we're like, okay, well, we we tore off 2 large sections of the roof and they're only temporarily dried in. So they're like, okay, does it leak? We're like, well, no, but if a good wind comes by, say like 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, it's a temporary dry in. And they said, well, we don't really care. Well, that's between you, the church, and your insurance company. You cannot work on the roof.
What?
And so we're like, okay, what's the best case scenario here? We can't allow the temp roof to blow off and have $1 million claim against our insurance company. And so I actually researched it a little bit and I found out that every sort of those cases, you can actually appeal to the governor. And we did an appeal and we actually got in writing something from the governor's office allowing us to proceed. So we got back out there and the same city officials came out and they're like, we're going to take your license. If you don't get off the roof, we're going to put you in jail. It was severe. And then we showed them this document from the governor's office and they're like, wow, okay, well, you're allowed to proceed because they take precedence, and we're able to finish that job. But, also during COVID, there are a lot of complexities. There are a lot of projects where we were about to start or had started, and they all got halted. We have about 140 employees, and all of a sudden we didn't have work for probably 30 of them or so, but
Right.
you can't send them home, right? These people rely on that check every single week. You send them home, it sends a very bad message.
Hmm.
It puts them in a impossible situation, and it's just not good. So what we did was like, okay, so what can we do to keep everybody busy? There are a few different things we did. We decided to redo some of our own buildings. So in the Cincinnati office, we tore off the roof.
Well,
It was a big flat roof. We tore
yeah.
off the roof, replaced the roof, painted the building. In Columbus, we tore off the roof, put a new roof on, changed out the facade, or started to change out the facade. And then a lot of the guys that needed training, we put them in the course room. We trained them. And that actually, it's almost kind of weird to say, but in a way, COVID really helped the company, because when we did this, we expanded because people were saying Durable kept all their guys. They did whatever they had to do to keep them busy. And we actually got workers, really good workers from other companies. And it actually helped us not just survive, but actually do better. What I say to a lot of people that are in business is that you're always going to be thrown that curveball. It's like, just stop for a second. Don't make any rash decisions, because that's usually what happens. Something happens, like, oh my gosh. And they jump
Yeah.
to some conclusion and they do something. And sometimes that thing is irreversible.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like
Especially with the personnel, it's an unstable time for everyone, not just business owners, and during COVID. And to be able to keep them employed even when there wasn't work, you made work. I could only imagine that they've told their families, they've told their friends, other people who want to work for your company are definitely wanting to work for your company. I'm sure it's made and it's a culture, right? So it creates the we care about you, and you mean it.
yeah,
It's fantastic.
yeah.
So John, I appreciate your time on this podcast. Is there any other thing you would like to leave us with here before we wrap it up?
I think the main thing is that you set your goals high and you do whatever you need to do to achieve that. And like I said, you get thrown these curveballs and you just stop for a moment and you say, okay, how can I knock this curveball out of the park? And if you
Right.
just kind of stop and do that, you're golden.
Very good.
Yeah.
Good, John. I want to thank you very much for being on today's podcast. I hope this has been helpful for all of our listeners. We'll end it right here today.